What's up, people? Joe Winko here, your favorite Hawaiian guy, and here's my next episode of Joe Winko Talk. This is going to be a really morbid and personal and gloomy episode of Joe Winko Talk. I was inspired, in lack of better terms, to talk about this because of the coronavirus. But I actually been planning on doing this video for a really long time, long before all this coronavirus stuff began happening. This episode of Joe Winko Talk is going to be about what I want done with my remains after I die. I never wanted to be buried at all, not without being cremated first. I always prefer to have my body cremated after I die. It's just the thing is, I wouldn't want my bandana burned or any of my necklaces or my wristbands at all. I honestly would want those to be kept and given to someone else, really, after I pass away. I actually want half of my ashes to be scattered into the Ohio River in Louisville, Kentucky, and the other half to be buried in a cemetery in Castle Delaware. And I'm going to be talking about why I chose both of those locations, because both of them are places that I'm spiritually connected to, honestly. At first, I wanted all my ashes scattered into the Ohio River, but the reason why I want half of them buried is because I want to have a grave for people to go visit and leave flowers by, because that's actually what I do in quite a few of my YouTube videos. I go to visit people's graves and I always leave flowers by them. There's many reasons why I do that, but one of the reasons why is because I'd want people to do the same for me. So that's why I always done it for them. So that's why I want half of my ashes buried. And I wanted a black tombstone with my picture on it, exactly like this tombstone right here. That's the kind of tombstone I wanted to have. It doesn't really matter how it's shaped, but I just wanted one standing up that had my picture on it in a grayscale, exactly like that, except with my picture instead. And I'd want them to use this picture to put on my tombstone. That picture is actually of me in Norfolk, Virginia, or Norfolk, Virginia, as the locals call it. That picture is from last summer, and I wanted to use that picture because I remember how happy I was to be there, because I was so excited to be in Virginia, because I always wanted to visit Virginia, and I really want to go back. I really hope I get the chance to go back there. I'm certain that I will, though. But I was really happy to be there, and I remember how excited and happy I was that day because I was also going to be going to Virginia Beach. It was a stranger I met online who brought me up there. So that's the picture that I wanted them to put on my tombstone. A picture of me smiling and giving the peace sign, because I love that picture, and that's how I want people to remember me, honestly. Now, as I said earlier, I wanted my ashes, half of them, buried at a cemetery near Castle Delaware. And you guys may be wondering, why Castle Delaware? The reason why I chose Castle Delaware is because last summer, this stranger, well, he's not really a stranger anymore, me and him are friends. We took a really long road trip. He picked me up from Virginia, and we went all the way to Connecticut, then across upstate New York. I have a map of everywhere where we went. Let me show it to you guys right now. There it is right there. That's everywhere we went on our road trip, and that was really the longest road trip ever, and it was a lot of fun, really. But out of all those places that I visited on the road trip, the only place where I didn't know anything bad happened at was Delaware. And what I mean by that is, during that road trip, there were a lot of graves I went to visit, and a lot of personal places that I'm spiritually connected to, and some of them are kind of sad, but the happy place that I went to, well, all of them were nice places, really, don't get me wrong. But I really loved Delaware, though, and the thing was, I wasn't even planning on doing a video in Delaware. It was just a place that we were passing through, and I was like, you know what, how about I do a video in Delaware while we're driving through here? And I ended up loving Delaware because the people there are really nice, and while I was standing in front of the sign doing my video, this one girl drove by me and she said, "Hey, hi," and she was waving at me and everything, and I waved back. And I thought the locals were very nice too, because there was one woman that I met there. She saw me doing the video because, like, we were in Newcastle and it was like really quiet, and when I do my YouTube videos I always talk really loud, and she heard me doing my YouTube video and she was telling me more facts about Delaware so I can talk about them in my video, and I thought that was really nice of her, honestly, because she helped make the video cooler, and I really appreciated that also. She also thought I looked cool in my red pointy bandana, so I always appreciate that. The song Be With You Everywhere by Fleetwood Mac, that song always reminded me of Delaware, and it was playing in my head the whole entire time we were driving through Delaware. And I really love that song, Be With You Everywhere by Fleetwood Mac. That's why I wrote the piano parody version of it called Let's Take a Ride Through Delaware. I'll have a link to that in the pinned comments in case you guys want to watch it. And also another reason is because Interstate 95 runs through Delaware. That's the interstate that I'm spiritually connected to because I always loved the East Coast of the USA. And also, I was born in 1995, so I always wanted to be buried near Interstate 95. I wanted my ashes buried near Interstate 95. And Newcastle, Delaware is right near Interstate 95, so I'd want my ashes buried either in Newcastle, Delaware or near Newcastle, Delaware, because I actually loved Delaware and I thought it was really cool, and I really been wanting to go back there too. I love Delaware. It was amazing. And now, as I said earlier, I also wanted half of my ashes scattered into the Ohio River in Louisville, Kentucky. Now, the Ohio River is a place that I'm spiritually connected to for quite a few reasons. In case you guys don't know, I lived in the USA, Canada, and the Dominican Republic, but I spent most of my life living in Wisconsin in the USA. Wisconsin is a state in the Midwest in the USA, and now I live in Florida. And the thing is, I actually spent more time living in Florida than I have in the Dominican Republic or in Canada, really, because I've been living down here since October of 2017. So the regions of the USA that I'm mostly spiritually connected to are the Midwest and the South. And the thing is, the Ohio River is actually the border between the Midwest and the South, because everything south of the Ohio River is considered to be part of the South, and everything north of the Ohio River is considered to be the Midwest. So that's why I always loved the Ohio River. I actually have 3 videos of me crossing the Ohio River. The first one is from year 2017. That's when my adoptive dad dropped me off in Florida to live with his relatives, who I'm living with right now. And we drove through Louisville, Kentucky on the way down to Florida from Wisconsin. And and that's actually the exact area where I want my ashes to be scattered, in the Ohio River in Louisville, Kentucky. That's why you hear that morbid and haunting piano song playing in the background in all my videos of me crossing over the Ohio River. And in the next video of me crossing the Ohio River, that was in Cincinnati, Ohio. That was in October of 2018 when the stranger I met online took me on a road trip to Ohio. Well, he's not really a stranger, and he wasn't a stranger at that point either, because me and him been on a road trip to Arkansas before. But that's when he brought me to Ohio. We crossed the Ohio River into Cincinnati, Ohio. And I loved Cincinnati, Ohio. That's actually my favorite city in Ohio, honestly. And then the last video of me crossing the Ohio River was actually from last summer, and it's actually one that I just recently posted. That's when my adoptive dad was taking me home back to Florida after the long road trip me and him went on, because last summer the stranger brought me back to Wisconsin because my adoptive parents said that they could take me back to Florida, and that's what they ended up doing after the whole road trip was over. And we also went to a couple other places between Wisconsin and Florida, but that's what we ended up doing. But as I said earlier, the place along the Ohio River where I wanted half of my ashes scattered is the Ohio River in Louisville, Kentucky. That one area is a place that I'm seriously spiritually connected to. And there's quite a few reasons for that too. They're all pretty morbid, but first thing is that was actually almost the last place where my adoptive parents saw me alive at during the whole necrophiliac story that I talked about in my 2016 episode of Joe Winko Talk. In case you guys are wondering, I wasn't the one who was the necrophiliac in that story. It's a pretty long and gloomy story, and it was a really rough time in my life. I was able to move past it, but it was a really rough time in my life. I'll have the link to that in the pinned comments of this video if you wanted to know what happened at that time. I also think about a lot of other stuff too whenever I go over the Ohio River. Another person who I always thought of was Shannon Sharer. She was a 12-year-old girl who lived in Indiana, and she was kidnapped and murdered by this gang of girls, and they were driving her all over southern Indiana, where they were just abusing her and torturing her the whole entire time. And it's just horrible what Shanda went through, and I always felt sorry for Shannon Sharer. And they were driving her around southern Indiana near the Ohio River, and I always think of her whenever I go over the Ohio River, and I always remember her whenever I go over the Ohio River. She was actually the first person I talked about in my Chilling Crimes documentary series. Another person who I think about is Marcia King. At first, they didn't know what her name was, but they always called her the Buckskin Girl because she was wearing a deerskinned jacket when they found her. She was a girl who was murdered in Ohio back in 1981, and how I first found out about her was back when I was a little kid. I went online and I was reading about some morbid, scary crime stories that actually happened because I wanted to get ideas for my scary story I was writing. And then I read about Marcia King, but they didn't know what her name was at that time. They were calling her the Buckskin Girl. And they said that she was found in a ditch in Ohio, and someone beat her to death and strangled her to death. And I remember seeing the picture of her, and this picture is really haunting and really morbid and really gloomy, but this was the picture I saw of her. That was her when they found her, and I felt really sorry for her. I remember when I first saw that picture back when I was a kid, and I felt really sorry for her, and I just felt really bad for her that someone was evil enough to kill her for no reason. And I just remember back when I was a little kid, I always wanted to talk to her and tell her that I'm really sorry that someone killed her and that it wasn't fair at all. And I still feel that way. To this day, I still do. Even after I found out what her name actually was, I actually went to her grave up in Ohio at the Riverside Cemetery, and I left flowers by her grave. And I just thought it was really sad. Her name was Marcia King, and she was 21 years old, and she was from Arkansas. And that was another thing that kind of struck me, because she was 21 years old, and that was the same age I was when I hitchhiked down to Arkansas. And she reminded me of myself. And she reminded me even more of myself, because she always loved adventure, and she always wanted to go on adventures all the time. And it's just really cruel that someone killed her for no reason. Whenever I saw that picture of her, the one of her in the morgue that I showed you guys earlier, I always saw myself in that picture. And that was another reason why I wanted my ashes scattered into the Ohio River, because she always reminded me of myself whenever I read about her. And I wanted to tell her that I was sorry for what happened to her, and that she didn't deserve that at all. So that's why I wanted them scattered into the Ohio River. Another person I think of when I go over the Ohio River is a girl named Desiree Reiter. I did an episode of Joe Winko Talk about her a long time ago. She was a 16-year-old girl who lived near Cincinnati, Ohio, right near the Ohio River. She was being bullied in school, and she suffered from depression, exactly like I did back when I was her age, because I was being bullied in school a lot. I was reading about people online, students online who've killed themselves because they were being bullied in school, because I thought I was going to end up just like one of them, because that's what I was planning on doing. I actually did try killing myself back when I was 15. That's how I got this scar on my arm. And the scar on my knee. What ended up happening was I tried hanging myself from a curtain rod, but the thing was, when I tried that, the rope wasn't strong enough, it was too thin, and I ended up falling out a window. And when I broke through the glass, that's how I got this scar on my arm and on my knee. It was a really rough time in my life, but after that happened, that's when I was put into school for people with autism, because that was around the time I was diagnosed with autism. That's one of the things the kids at school used to bully me about all the time. I never was ashamed of having autism, though. That wasn't the only thing they bullied me about, though. They bullied me about a lot of other stuff, too. It just wasn't a good time for me at all. Really. And that's the reason why I wanted my ashes scattered into the Ohio River, because that was the same river that Desiree Reiter lived by, and she always reminded me of myself. And I felt sorry for her. And it was just unfair that she was being put through so much pain, and that people were so mean to her, because she didn't deserve that at all. None of these girls deserved that at all. I also think of Jocelyn Flores, and Jocelyn Flores actually lived up in Cleveland, Ohio. She didn't live near the Ohio River at all, but she still lived in Ohio, and she was suffering from depression. I did a whole episode of Joe Winko Talk about her a long time ago. I'll have the link to it in the pinned comments. And I also visited her grave. And I also listened to the song that XXXTentacion wrote about her. And I just felt sorry for her too, because she suffered with depression, and she didn't deserve to go through that. And I just hope that she's at peace now, like the others. Another major thing that I think of with the Ohio River, because this is literally right near it, is the Waverly Hill Sanatorium in Louisville, Kentucky. The Waverly Hill Sanatorium was this huge building where they put a bunch of people who were sick with tuberculosis way back in the early 1900s. It was a place where they would quarantine people because tuberculosis was spreading all over the USA, just like coronavirus is. I actually had a dream one night that I was diagnosed with coronavirus, and these people came to my house and they took me away, and they drove me up from Florida all the way to the Waverly Hill Sanatorium in Louisville, Kentucky, because that's where they were going to keep me and that's where they were going to quarantine me. And I just remember being really freaked out and feeling really scared because I actually always wanted to visit the Waverly Hills Sanitarium. It's not a hospital anymore. They actually converted it into like a haunted house, like a tourist attraction. I always wanted to go there and take a selfie in front of the Waverly Hills Sanitarium because I always thought the building was beautiful because it looks just like my biological uncle's house that I used to live in the Dominican Republic. I mean, my Uncle Mario's house, it wasn't that big, but it still has that gothic look to it, like his house did. And I think it's a beautiful building, really. And that's why I always wanted to visit the Waverly Hills Sanitarium. Another thing that I would always say is that my ghost would always haunt the Waverly Hills Sanitarium, even though I didn't die there and most likely will never end up dying there, but I hope I do get to visit the Waverly Hills Sanitarium. There were actually a lot of places that my ghost was going to haunt, not just one. All the places that I'm spiritually connected to, and trust me, there's a lot of them. There are a lot, and a lot of them are really far away from each other, too. So, those are all the reasons why I wanted my ashes scattered into the Ohio River in Louisville, Kentucky. I have had some other ideas on what I want done with my body after I died. It's just the thing is, I don't think these are practical, but one other ideal I had was to have my body preserved like Rosalia Lombardo. I did an episode of Joe Winko Talk about her a long time ago. She was a little girl who lived in Italy who died of pneumonia way back in the 1920s. Her parents were really upset that she passed away, and they really missed her, and they asked the mortician to preserve her body so she never decays at all. And that's exactly what he did. And here's a picture of her in year 1995. This was like 70 years after she died, and she's still perfectly preserved and perfectly recognizable. And that's another thing that I always thought of, having my body perfectly preserved like hers. And another thing is, my adoptive sisters, one of my adoptive sisters actually works as a mortician, and I remember I told her about that a really long time ago. I asked her if I died, would she ever preserve my body like Rosalia Lombardo so I never decay at all, and so I'm always recognizable, and so people can come in and see what I looked like and who I was. She actually told me that she would do that for me, that she would preserve my body and have me lay up there with the red bandana tied around my head like I always have, and with a picture of me hanging above my body so people knew how I was when I was alive and everything. I actually did a Photoshop video of myself if I ended up like Rosalia Lombardo, what I would look like if I died and if my adoptive sister preserved my body just like Rosalia Lombardo. She actually died of pneumonia, and whenever I see that picture of her laying in the tomb, because that's where she is in Italy, at a catacomb tomb, I found it very interesting, but to be completely honest, I think it's really sad too. I felt really sorry for her, and it's very haunting too. And I remember when I was telling my adoptive sister about that, and my adoptive sister even told me that she doesn't know how they got her preserved that long, but later on it was discovered exactly how it was done. They had like this whole process listed. It's on Wikipedia somewhere, but I told my adoptive sister about that, and I remember printing it out and giving it to her, and she said, "Oh, okay, I could do all that to have you preserved like that." How they done it was they used a lot of chemicals, and they replaced Rosalia's blood with these chemicals so her body would never decay at all. But she said that it would require a lot more chemicals because Rosalia Lombardo, she was a little girl, but I'm 6'3" and 140 something pounds. So she said it would require a lot more of the chemicals and it might be a bit more complicated, but she said that it's something that could be done. Also, another thing, I'm not sure if there's any catacombs or anything like that in the USA, but she did tell me that if she managed to preserve my body like that, it's possible that a museum somewhere in the USA would be okay with putting it on display as a memorial. I honestly would prefer that more than being cremated, if that was possible. There's also another ideal on what I had, on what I would want done with my remains after I died. I was actually talking about this with a friend a while ago. He was the first one who told me about this, and the thing was, I never even knew that this was possible, really. He told me that he would want his ashes made into a diamond, and he said that diamonds last forever, and that they never decay at all. And I just thought that would be the coolest thing, to have my remains turned into a diamond, and to have someone else keep that, or have it be on display somewhere. I would absolutely love that. And I even remember asking him, are they able to choose the color of the diamond or anything like that? And he said, yeah, they just have to, I think he says they have to burn like a chemical with it to change the color of it, to choose what color that the ashes would turn into when they become a diamond and everything. I wanted my remains to be turned into a pink diamond. Not really red, but more of a pink diamond, because I always thought that pink was a happier, more uplifting color than red. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love red though, but if I died and they made my remains into a diamond, I would want to be a pink diamond, because I think that'd be really cool. And I'm not sure if I'd want it buried. I'd want it put on display, like in a museum or a sculpture or something. Maybe a sculpture of a person holding it, or maybe even a sculpture of me holding it, like my statue that I made for SimCity 4 in the United States of Joe Winko. The statue that I made was a statue of me holding a seagull, because I absolutely love seagulls. Whenever I would go to the beach, I'd always see seagulls, and I always loved the noises that they made. We had tons of them in Wisconsin, and we also have quite a few of them in Florida, too. And also, I remember hearing them up in Connecticut and even on Virginia Beach, and also in the Dominican Republic. I always loved the noises that they made, and I always loved how they always liked being by the water. Kind of like myself. I never wanted to live by the water, but it's always a fun place to visit. Now, there's another thing that I wanted to talk about in this video, and I want to go over it really quick. These are the songs that I would want played at my funeral, or at my memorial service, or if anyone ever made like a memorial video for me at all. These are the songs I would want played. This first song is Watch Me Bleed by Scary Kids Scaring Kids. And the reason why I chose that song is because it has a very haunting melody to it. And I recently discovered that song. I found it while I was looking up some emo or gothic music on YouTube when this coronavirus stuff all started. And I always associate that song with coronavirus. It has a very slow and haunting melody to it. And it also has really haunting lyrics to it also. I'll have a link to all these songs in the pinned comments of this video. Another song that I would want played at my memorial service is Viva Forever by the Spice Girls, because I always loved the Spice Girls, and I always thought their song, Viva Forever, that was my favorite song, and it was also my biological uncle's favorite song. He loved the Spice Girls like I did, and I always loved the song Viva Forever by the Spice Girls, because it's really sad and really haunting. There's also another song that I would want played at my funeral or memorial service or anything like that, It's called Let Love Lead the Way by the Spice Girls, and I always used to listen to that song back when I was a little kid. It always made me feel bad because Ginger Spice wasn't with them when they sung that song, and the song is really sad, but it still has like an uplifting tone to it. It's difficult to explain, really, but it's just like a really deep and emotional song, and that's why I would want it played at my memorial service. Another song that I would want played is Gypsy by Fleetwood Mac. And that's another song that has like a sad sound to it, but it also manages to have an uplifting vibe to it at the same time. It's difficult to explain, but I'll have the link to it in the pinned comments, and if you guys listen to it, you'll know exactly what I mean by that. I always thought that a gypsy was a person who likes to hitchhike around and explore and see new stuff all the time and who loves adventure, exactly like I do, really. And that song always reminded me of myself. Here's a map of all the places that I've been wanting to road trip to. Here it is right here. Those were all the places that I've been wanting to road trip to. I've been trying to find someone to take me to them for a long time. I'm really hoping that I get to go to all of them while I'm still alive, but I definitely will get to see all of them. Even if I'm not alive, my ghosts will go and haunt all of them. That's what I always thought, because those are all places that I'm spiritually connected to. But getting back to the song Gypsy by Fleetwood Mac, one thing that the singer always sings in the song is "To the gypsy that I was." And it feels like she's singing about herself after she passed away, because she's saying "to the gypsy that I was," and that reminded me of myself if I passed away, really. And I also read online that she wrote the song about freedom and being herself, like wearing the costume she always liked to wear. That's what it means when she says "to the gypsy that I was." Kind of like myself when I wear my red pointy bandana and my red cape everywhere when I do my YouTube videos or when I'm taking my selfies, because that's always been my trademark and everything. That's how people are able to recognize me. That's why I wear it all the time, really. I also read that she wrote the song for her friend who passed away from cancer, and that kind of explains the sad mood that you get from the song, because there's one part of the song where she sings that she is dancing away from you now. She was just a wish, and the memory, that's all that's left for you now. And that's honestly the saddest part of the song, really, and the most haunting part of the song. That definitely makes me think of myself if I passed away. It doesn't just make me think of myself, it also makes me think of other people too. But it does make me think of myself, really. And that's why I want that song played at my memorial service or in a memorial video or anything like that if I ever die, because that song always reminded me of myself, really. And also, whenever I listened to that song, I always would feel proud of myself, too, and proud of who I was. It's sad because a lot of people can't say that at all. I mean, I know there's quite a few people who can, but I always hear about people talk down about themselves and put themselves down all the time, and who aren't proud of themselves at all, and who always wish they were something else and never want to be themselves at all. But that's not who I am. If I had a choice between choosing to be the happiest man alive, or the richest man alive, or the healthiest man alive, or, I don't know, the best man alive, or being Joe Winko, I would absolutely choose Joe Winko over anything, really. There's no one else I would want to be but myself. And I'm dead serious about that, too. Like, I never try to be anyone else. I'm always myself, and I never change at all. And that's what the song Gypsy by Fleetwood Mac always would remind me of. And that's why I love that song so much. And another thing I was thinking of was I was planning on putting together like a ritual that people can do so they're able to summon my ghost after I pass away. I'm not exactly sure how they would be able to do that though. I'm not too experienced with summoning spirits or anything like that. But I just thought it'd be really cool if like someone who was watching my videos on YouTube was able to like summon my ghost to come visit them and everything. Like I wouldn't do anything bad at all. Like I wouldn't be like an evil ghost at all. I would be a happy ghost really. I mean, depending on the circumstances, I might not be the happiest ghost. I mean, because I don't really want to die right now, but if I did die, I would be sad about that. But it depends on what's there for me in the afterlife, and I don't know, I could get used to being a ghost, I guess. I mean, if I get to float around and explore everywhere, that'd be pretty awesome, honestly. Especially if my remains were turned into a diamond. That'd be so cool. But, yeah, that was another thing I was thinking of, a ritual to summon my ghost. I I believed that if I came up with something on how a person can summon my ghost, it might actually be more effective because I was the one who came up with it and that I'm the one that they're trying to summon. Not sure if that made sense to any of you guys. I kind of have a difficult time explaining stuff because of my autism mind. That's why I have so many of these strange connections. I mean, I don't think they're strange, but I see how a person can think they're strange, though. But that's another thing I had on my mind, really. That way I would never truly be gone at all, and that'd be awesome. Speaking of that, I'm actually planning on releasing one thing on my YouTube channel, because YouTube has a feature where you can release something and schedule it to be posted. I used that feature quite a bit before, but it has a feature where you can schedule something to be released. So, like, say I uploaded a video onto YouTube and I scheduled it to be released, like, 3 months from now, but then I ended up dying right away, and then 3 months later, the video would still be uploaded onto YouTube. But yeah, I plan on releasing something like that to YouTube soon. And even if I end up surviving all this coronavirus stuff, I still am going to release it anyway. I mean, there was just more stuff I wanted to do with it before I release it to everyone else. But it's something that will keep me alive forever. It's nothing bad at all, but it's something that will keep me alive forever. I don't want to tell you guys what it is, but that's the one hint that I'm going to give you. Something that will keep me alive forever. And in the video, I was going to tell you guys what I want you all to do with it. But that's all I'm going to say about it now. And don't worry, even if I don't die, I'm still planning on releasing it. So, yeah. So, that's basically it for this episode of Joe Winko Talk. Sorry it was such a morbid and gloomy one. It's just with this coronavirus stuff going on, I've been a bit out of it and kind of freaked out because I never seen anything like this going on so much. I hope everyone watching this video stays safe. And remember, don't touch your face, don't touch your mouth, don't touch your nose, don't touch your eyes, and make sure to wash your hands and keep practicing social distancing. Hell, you can just spend days watching my videos on YouTube. I have over 1,000 uploaded, and by the time you're done watching all 1,000 of them, there'll be 1,000 more for you guys to watch, unless I kick the bucket, but yeah, let's hope that I don't, and let's hope that you guys don't either. So make sure to stay safe and healthy out there with all this coronavirus stuff. Keep practicing the social distancing, because that's what's keeping everyone safe, honestly. I understand that a lot of people aren't, but keep practicing the social distancing and stay at home and just keep your distance from people. But yeah. So that's basically it for this episode of Joe Winko Talk. Don't forget to like, don't forget to comment, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to like me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr. So that's it. Peace out, people.